The night was cold and clear, a light dusting of snow across the ground. 60 feet below the surface, the Deputy Missile Combat Crew Commander sat in his launch control capsule when he got a call from officers topside. They were seeing some strange star-like object zigzagging across the night sky. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my show. Today, we'll be discussing the fascinating case of the Malmstrom mystery. Now, I'll be honest, this case is a little bit different from those that I normally focus on. As you probably realize if you've seen my channel for any length of time, I really like cases of kind of close contact encounters with the anomalous. Lots of, yeah, just kind of high contact, high strangeness. However, this case is genuinely very weird. And also, too, with the wild, drone quote unquote situation going on involving these things being seen near military establishments. I mean, even Wright-Patterson shut down for a short time because of these things that people are seeing, whatever they are. I thought it might be of interest to discuss one of the most famous or perhaps infamous cases of anomalies over a US military base. This, of course, is the Malmstrom Air Force Base UFO missile incident. March 24th, 1967, then U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Robert Salas was on duty as the Deputy Missile Combat Crew Commander in the Launch Control Center, or LCC, capsule, about 60 feet below the snow-covered Montana soil. Oscar Flight LCC was located about 2 miles away from the small town of Roy and about 20 miles away from Echo Flight LCC, something we will return to later. Now, above ground, one of the airmen began seeing what he at first thought was a star begin to zigzag across the sky. Stars don't normally do that. Then he saw another light, also zigzagging across the sky, only this one was larger and closer. He got his flight security commander, a non-commissioned officer in charge of the LCC site security, to look at the objects with him. They both watched as the lights continued maneuvering in the sky, and not just performing any maneuvers. These lights would move at an extremely high speed, stop abruptly, perform high-speed directional changes. At this stage, the flight security controller ran into the building and called Salas, reporting that they were seeing strange lights making maneuvers over the facility and that, quote, they weren't aircraft. Salas's response? Great, you just keep watching them and let me know if they get any closer. He had no idea how close this encounter was about to get. The truth is, Salas actually thought that it was a joke at the time that this guy called him. And the only thing that he was really bothered by was how unprofessional and out of character it was for air security to be joshing around on the phone. Turns out he did not need to worry about that. A few minutes later, the flight security controller called him again, this time shouting and extremely frightened. He yelled, "Sir, there's one hovering just outside the front gate." Salas asked what he meant by one, and he replied, "A UFO." He said that it was just sitting there, they were all looking at it, and asked Salas what he should do. Salas asked what the object looked like, and the man replied that he couldn't really describe it, just that it was glowing red. Upon later discussion, he said that it appeared to be saucer or oval-shaped, glowing red, and hovering silently, right outside the front gate of the facilities. During the initial phone call, Salas advised him to secure the site, and the conversation was abruptly interrupted when the officer said that he had to go. One of the men was injured. According to documents retrieved through the Freedom of Information Act by John Greenwald for theblackvault.com, there was no documentation of any personnel injured in this incident. However, the flight security officer told Salas that the man who had been injured had actually approached the UFO and, though not seriously hurt, was evacuated by helicopter to the base. Salas immediately woke his commander, Lieutenant Fred Maywald, from his scheduled sleep period and began briefing him about the phone calls and what was going on when suddenly alarms began going off. The alarms had to do with a cluster of 10 Minutemen intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, which Oscar Flight was responsible for. One of the missile sites had gone no-go, offline and inoperable. Then another alarm sounded, and another, and within a half minute, 8 of the missiles were offline. Less than a minute after the object had arrived at the front gate, it left. However, the few officers involved with that particular object weren't the only ones to report something strange. A security patrol sent to check on the launch facilities after the shutdown reported spotting another UFO during that patrol, and promptly lost radio contact as soon as they reported it. the missiles were still not online by the time that the crew was relieved later that morning. However, Salas would soon find out that this was not the first time that something like this had happened. No, a mere 8 days earlier at nearby Echo Flight LCC, a UFO was reported hovering right above the launch facilities, like in this case. And like in this case, the missiles, all 10, went offline due to an inexplicable fault in the guidance and control system. Now, all of this was occurring during a county-wide UFO flap in those early months of 1967 in Cascade County, Montana. In fact, likely the very night of the Oscar flight incident, a Good Friday, as a matter of fact, or a matter of trivia, was the dramatic Belt Hill UFO sighting by truck driver Ken Williams. Williams was on a typical run that Friday night from Laurel to Great Falls when he spotted something bright in the sky about 9 in the evening. He was driving up a hill when he saw this pure white dome-shaped light land in a gully about a mile off the road. He continued to the top of the hill and then stopped and flagged down a passing motorist, who went on to call the Cascade County Sheriff. Right as patrol officer Bud Nader arrived, the object appeared for a second time, only this time it was further away. Williams claimed that it seemed to go up into the air and then drop down again. Officer Nader stated that he also saw a light that then went down and vanished out of sight. Deputies covered the area on foot but only found a circle of broken limbs about 30 feet in diameter. It was reported in the Great Falls Tribune that airmen from the Malmstrom Air Force Base also reported a UFO at 3:30 in the morning Saturday and actually picked it up on radar shortly thereafter. Now, as with many other UFO flaps, we weren't just seeing, very similar objects. We were seeing objects from across the board, a total grab bag of encounters. Sightings included bright, mobile, star-like objects, orange balls of fire, cigar-shaped lighted objects, lights in formation, things which resembled craft and emitted balls of light, and then saucer-shaped objects with swept-back wings and domes on top. So, kind of your classic UFO, I guess. This is an odd case, and again, rather timely in my opinion for the so-called drone flap that is currently going on. To tie recent events with the events that I've summed up here, what intrigues me most is that this current bunch of sightings that we have going on, out of a good many that do seem like some sort of craft or drone, people are also lopping in other really weird sightings with the drones. Exactly like what was reported in 1967. This grab bag of different things, craft, orbs, star-like objects. Here and now we have people reporting, sure, things that appear to be, again, some sort of craft or drone-like object. But then they also have these anomalous lights or orbs of light, or even kind of organic-looking things. And they're reporting those also as drones. If we simplify either of these, it seems like a lot of people are seeing a lot of apparently different things. And again, they're all kind of just falling under this drone umbrella. You see a craft in the sky, it's a drone. You see a light in the sky, it's a drone. You see a weird, globular, luminous looking thing, oh, it's a drone. In spite of the fact that it really does not look like a drone at all. Many researchers have noticed the connection of UFO sightings to places involved with nuclear power. And this is a great example of that. Here it's amazing that you have, in very close succession, 2 mass sightings of UFOs over ICBM sites by trained observers, Air Force officers, that occur simultaneously with these missiles malfunctioning. This concept of something, especially equipment, malfunctioning around an anomalous sighting is not new or even that uncommon. All sorts of equipment tends to break down around anomalies of any sort, whether we're talking UFOs, ghosts, even cryptids. The common belief is that these malfunctioning devices are due to an electromagnetic effect of some sort. And in this case, the technicians who came to troubleshoot and fix the disabled missiles found that they could recreate the event with about 80% success by administering a 10-volt pulse into the system, lending credibility to the concept that this must have been some external force. What I find interesting is that anomalies research is just absolutely rife with such accounts of, all sorts of equipment malfunctioning, radios, cars, TVs, acting up when UFOs or other creepy crawlies are nearby. Of course, one of the most infamous cases of this is the Partridge encounter, pretty much the case that kicked off the Mothman flap in '66, which began with TV interference. However, one of my personal favorites is, of course, the Marlinton encounter, in which a man spotted a Bigfoot-like creature by the side of the road, and each time that he saw the creature, his car absolutely fried out. Now, am I saying for sure that there is an EM effect? Not exactly. That's kind of a longer conversation for a different video. But I think that stuff like this has happened far too many times with such perfect timing, equipment failure, and anomalous sightings to write it off as mere coincidence. Back also to that grab bag of sightings. It seems to me that with such widespread encounters, it's kind of silly to think that one weird thing in the sky and another weird thing in the sky would be disconnected. Of course, there's always room for misidentification, and there's also room for unknown mundane craft. Think a new form of classified stealth craft or something like that in the sky. But when it comes to these sightings of different things all behaving the same, whether it's a star like object or a craft or an orb, maneuvering in these seemingly impossible ways of high speed turns, dead stops, total silence, it seems to me that the image must be the only difference, and likely that only apparently, kind of covering some core anomaly behind it. Now, something about this report that I can't emphasize enough, especially because it is a very official, report. It's about all of these Air Force officers having this mass sighting, missiles malfunctioning. There's a lot of trappings of, just officialdom around it. And there is, though, a very human response to the anomaly, and we can't forget that in any of these cases. In February of 2023, Robert Salas was finally able to tell his story to an official from the Department of Defense's All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Now, regardless of your feelings on the kind of ongoing disclosure movement, um, it was a big deal for him, as this was the first time that he was able to officially discuss this event. Well, if you enjoyed this episode on the Malmstrom mystery, please like, and if you're new to this field of crop circles, go ahead and subscribe to see what weirdness the future may have in store. Till then, you can keep up with me on my free blog at patreon.com/justanothertinfoilhat. And that reminds me, I am going to be posting my works cited in my free blog postings on Patreon. I'm glad I remembered that. Just to kind of keep things a little bit more orderly. I feel like that would be a better format for them, so just follow the link in the description to that. And again, these will be free blog postings. You do not need to join my paid Patreon to get my work cited. Anyway, but yeah, check that out to keep up with what I'm doing and to now keep up with the works cited pages for all of my videos. And please tune in to the podcast Somewhere in the Skies for the very best in anomalous listening. Every other Friday, Somewhere in the Skies is the home of the audio version of Just Another Tinfoil Hat, so definitely check that out. For today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off.
Doing.